Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. I'm not sure I'm going to follow all these amazing women that have spoken today, but I'll give it a shot. In my sixth grade yearbook, there is a most likely to section, and to my utter disappointment, I was voted most likely to be a Spanish teacher. I read plenty of other cool predictions of what my peers could become, but, but I was honestly a little disappointed. My classmates must have known something I didn't. I am a Spanish teacher. I spent the last 4 years of my life mentoring, teaching high school students, and I've grown with them, and I've learned what it truly means to be an educator. I used to think education meant filling students' heads with information. Yet, I now understand what every educator in this room deeply believes. It's about relationships and helping students become helping students become better people. I aim to teach my students the same values that I learned here any time that life got hard. The girls' middle school was sold to me as a place in which I could grow academically. I was excited for the opportunity, though I wasn't sure quite what it meant for me. It was the Bennett Scholarship that made it possible for me to attend. It was a pivotal moment in my life. Earning this scholarship was my first real taste of what it felt like to be worthy. It boosted my confidence. It compelled me to realize that hard work truly pays off. Earning a place at GMS allowed me to wonder what else I could accomplish in life. It was a spark that I needed. The transition to GMS was complicated and unexpected. I was especially surprised by the huge difference in language, culture, and academics between my peers and me. Talking with my new friends was a little stressful because I wasn't used to speaking English all the time. And for the first time, I couldn't rely on my Spanish if I forgot a word in English. Usually, I would be able to speak Spanish or Spanglish, but I wasn't able to do that anymore. I recall one particular conversation with friends. As we walked back from PE with Matt, we were talking about vices. I wanted to say that a vice is when people drink until they are drunk. I started the sentence and quickly realized that I had no clue how to say drunk in English. I searched my brain as quickly as I could, and the first word that I found that related to the topic was sober. My friend looked at me, and she said, "Do you mean drunk?" And I was like, "Yes." I giggled. I didn't say anything the rest of that conversation. I was deeply embarrassed and disappointed. I wondered if I would ever get to the point where I wouldn't have to struggle to find the vocabulary that I needed in order to express myself. Now, I regularly speak to my peers in both English and Spanish, and even though I still struggle to find those words, there's a difference. The difference now is I don't get stressed, I'm not frustrated, I laugh it off and continue, knowing that I'll look it up later. Not all the surprises I encountered at GMS were challenges. Until GMS, I did not realize the Spanish language could be a course that I could take. For the first time in my life, I had a Spanish class, not just class, in Spanish. This period each day provided me with immense joy and security. I love speaking Spanish with Maria and love seeing non-native speakers like Amelia embrace my language so well. I particularly remember an assignment for a poem. I was tasked with writing a poem that enticed the senses, and I wrote about my first trip to El Salvador, my family's home country. I had never thought I needed to express this experience, and I didn't realize I had such strong feelings about it. I learned through this poem the power of my words, the power of my native language. Descubrí que mis ideas son mucho más apasionadas en español. I discovered that my ideas sound so much more passionate in Spanish. The gift of this class was not only for me, but for my parents. For the first time in years, I asked them for help on homework. We worked together on that poem, and I know it touched my mother to know that I had so much love for her country. She was overjoyed to be able to sit with me once more and help me with school. As an educator, I make it a point to inform my students of my heritage and my experiences. I share my struggle with my hair, my skin color, and my education. I wear my brownness as a badge of honor to show them that they can do so as well. I never want my students to feel lost because of their culture, and I never want any of them to feel like other. Exposing my students to these things is the root as to why I love my job and why I take it so seriously. As a Spanish teacher, I feel fortunate to play a role in boosting my students' pride in their heritage and their language. I have the opportunity to insert my values into my lessons in class in an easy and natural way. Because of Spanish class at GMS, I first began to treasure my language and was inspired to become a true bilingual. I began to see the value in my heritage, in my point of view, and especially in my Spanish. I accepted that I did not need to blend in and realized that taking up space is okay. I have since committed myself to ensuring I can belong in any environment. When I first arrived at GMS, I often felt out of place, like I did not belong. I knew I had earned my way in, but I couldn't shake these feelings. As an adult, I now realize that what I was suffering from was imposter syndrome. I was unprepared for the culture shock and the vast knowledge that I lacked. Many pieces of my identity did not run parallel with that of my peers, and immediately a feeling of being other flooded my life. I've shared with you already about my language challenges and my delights, but another gulf between my peers and I was rooted in popular culture. The small assumptions that we make about our students matter. One of the first realizations of how different my experience was from my peers was my very first game of Jeopardy! Sitting in class, I saw a projection on the board of a grid with numbers. My peers burst into excited chatter as I sat there unsure of what the fuss was about. Walter bellowed, "It's time for Jeopardy!" And I felt the excitement grow further in the room. In the initial moments, I had no clue that this was a game. It hadn't even crossed my mind. I shyly asked someone nearby, "What is this?" And she quickly informed me, in a matter of fact, "It's a game of Jeopardy!" And I was like, totally, okay. As the game started, I saw the board, and then I heard answers, but I was still confused. I couldn't fathom giving an answer to something that wasn't a question. It was my turn fairly early in the game, and I was still very confused. My heart was beating a mile a minute, and I stared blankly at the board, because in my head, I had two thoughts. One, this isn't a question. And two, what is this? I don't recall my answer, but I recall not getting it right. I remember this story anytime I present new material to my students, and I ask each of you to remember it as well. We do not all have shared knowledge, and assumptions can make a child feel alone and confused. With so many challenges and the gaps in my knowledge, I found solace in one class where I felt the majority of my peers and I were on the same level: math. I discovered my love of math while at GMS. Thank you, Esther. You would think that my love for it means that I excelled at it, or that it came easily. On the contrary, I really struggled. I admit that I performed well, but there was a struggle every evening to make sure I understood the concepts. I was so systematic in the way that I did my math. I took great satisfaction in my nightly effort to understand and to make sure that Esther could understand my process. Math became an area of pride for me. One evening, I tackled my favorite assignment, math, to get myself started on my homework. I picked up my math book, did the first 4 problems with ease, but on the 5th one, I got stuck. I looked at my answer and realized there was no way that could be correct. I checked my process. I did it again on another piece of paper. I checked my arithmetic with a calculator, but I could not figure out why I was stuck. I could have easily left it and asked for help the next day at school, but my pride wouldn't let me. I looked back in the book, and I used other textbooks that my brother had brought me. I used every resource at my disposal. I don't recall my mistake, but I distinctly remember the feeling of discovery when I finally solved that problem. Many school nights initially were like this, and then my successes in math started to bleed into the rest of my academics. I stopped focusing on the things that I did not understand and focused instead on how to solve my problem. I teach my students that we don't have to only love the things that we're good at, but we should love the struggle, because that is how we learn to achieve what we want. This notion was solidified in one particular moment. I recall Walter towering over everyone in the room. I can still hear his words. Being smart isn't knowing all the answers. Being smart is knowing where to find them. In that moment, I felt like he was looking right at me and telling me these words directly. His words reverberate in my head every now and again, and when I have feelings of doubt. I tell my struggling students this story in the hopes that it sticks in their brain the same way it has stuck in mine all of these years. Embracing my struggles is really hard. I need to keep my goals in mind and persist hardest of all. And hardest of all, when things are out of my control, I need to let them go. With this mentality, I learn that I can overcome devastating life-altering trials. My father, Andrea Hernádez, passed away from cancer my freshman year of college. I was heartbroken and devastated. One restless night, a few weeks after his passing, I suddenly recalled his words. I recalled my last words to him. I promised him that I would care for my family in his absence. In that sleepless moment, I found renewed strength to push forward with my life. Without firm decision, I tackled the rest of my semester and was even on the dean's honor roll at the end of the year. Through my father's life and death, I learned to accept the things that I cannot control and persevere to achieve my goals. Entering GMS as a Bennett Scholar presented me with so many challenges and opportunities. I stand here today and know the lessons that I learned with the GMS community are the values that I want my students to own. Life presents tragedies and delights, yet knowing how to move through each struggle will allow you to discover and create the space you have earned. Be your own best resource. Embrace the struggle. Fight for and find your place. I want to look my students in the eye and say, it's okay to feel like you don't belong, but remember, create a space for yourself because you do belong. Thank you to each of you here. You're helping girls like me seek, discover, and own our space.